it's Deja with Knit and Crochet Ever After, and today we're making this 2x1 knit rib scarf. So this is a super beginner friendly pattern. It's got a great end to it, just an end to it. Like it's got a great look is what I mean. I like that both sides have a different look, but they're nice on both sides, so it's reversible. So we have the 2x1 creates this double knit stitch on the front, and the purl is in there, but you can't really see it. It's kind of squishes together. And then on the back side, you get the two purls with the one knit, and it's more visible, you know, the distinction on that side. So both sides look really cool. The pattern is down below in the description. If you like free patterns, make sure you like and subscribe. The more subscriptions, the more free patterns I will release, so it's a win-win for all. I am using Knit Picks Chroma Worsted, which is like one of my favorite yarns ever. I love the color changes that the Knit Picks gives. They flow so nicely. There's no hard edges. It's just, their colors are awesome. So I have a link in the description to the Chroma Worsted as well. We're using 8mm needles on these guys. So the Chroma, it recommends up to like a 5.5 needle, but I wanted this like really wide, really drapey. So I went with an 8mm, and you can see it's still dense. You know, it's airy, but dense. So I used one full, they're like in balls when you get them. It's not like a hank or a skein, it's like a ball. So I used one full ball, about 190 yards for this. So you can definitely make this with just one skein or one hank. I made it that way on purpose so that if you have just that one hank laying around, you can finally use it up on something that's very simple but looks great when it's done. So let's get started. We are going to go and just get going on the 2x1. It's very simple. I'm going to show you how it's done, and then we'll come back and talk about some blocking. Okay, so I wanted to show you this with some rows worked up so that you can see how we're going to read our knitting for these 2-row repeats that we're actually going to do. So you're going to cast on the amount of stitches in the pattern. You can adjust the pattern width to whatever you like. It's going to be multiples of 3, and then you'll add 2 onto that. So I'll explain why we add 2 while we're working this. So the pattern is a 2x1, so it's 2 knits, 1 purl basically on the front, and then the back side is 2 purls and 1 knit. So you get this reversible fabric, but it's got a different look to it. So you can see the 2 knits, 1 purl, and then the 2 purls, 1 knit. It gives you kind of this wider, I actually kind of like the wrong side of this better than the right side. It's just kind of a neat looking side. So to begin, we're going to do our pattern repeat, which is 2 knits and 1 purl. So it's obviously 3 stitches, so that's why we're doing multiples of 3 if you want to adjust the width. So 2 knits, 1 purl, 2 knits, 1 purl, and we do that all the way across. And then it says to the last 2 stitches, so that's where that add 2 comes on. Rather than finishing with a purl, I wanted to make it even on both sides and have 2 knit stitches on the end. So I have at the very end 2 stitches left, and I'm doing 2 knit stitches to mirror the 2 knit stitches that we did at the very beginning. So that is the 1 row. We turn it around and we'll have our second row. And the second row is a mirror of what we just did. So instead of 2 knits, we're going to start off with 2 purls. So we're going to do the opposite of what we just did. We're going to do 2 purls, 1 knit. So that's our stitch repeat. 2 purls, 1 knit, 2 purls, 1 knit, all the way across, of course, to the last 2 stitches where we are mirroring what we did at the beginning, which was 2 purls. So I want to show you how you can read your stitches so that you don't have to keep track of your rows if you're a beginner, so that you can just work until you run out of yarn, because that's the best way when you're doing a scarf like this. Just keep going, because the edge is the same as everything else. I wanted to make it super simple because it's a ribbed pattern. It lays flat, it doesn't curl. We're getting a little curling on the edges, but once we block it, that will go away. So when we're working this, we're going to look at what's below. Sometimes that first stitch can be a little hard to read. We want to look at other stitches to kind of get an idea. So when we're looking at our stitches, we see these little nubs that are kind of right in front of our loop. That is a purl stitch. That's a purl bump. And if you look down, if we kind of pull our work apart, you'll see that we have those purl bumps all the way down. Then next to it, we have V's. There's no purl, it's a V right off of that loop. Those are our knit stitches, and we know there's 2 here and then a purl, 2 purls. So we know we're on our right side, or our first repeat. So we can work backwards to say, okay, there's 2 knits and 1 purl, so I'm going to be starting with my knit. So if you kind of look at this, you can see that it is a knit stitch, and it'll look different when we look at the purl stitch on the other side. But looking at your stitches, if you stop your work and you pick it back up, look at what's below. You see that little bump, so that means I need to do a purl. You see a little V, nice big opening, no purl. You know you have knits. So you can stop and start without losing track of what you're supposed to do by just looking. Okay, what's that? Is there a little bump in front? No, there's a V, so that's a knit stitch. Same thing here, it's a knit. Oh, that one's got a bump, that's a purl. So it becomes very easy to see what is next working this pattern without having to keep track. So let's look at the other side so you can see what those beginning of the row purl bumps look like. I think those are much easier to see when you're working, because you can see that this is pulling. When I pull my yarn to the back, you can see those 2 bumps right there. When you bring it to the front, it's a little harder to see. It almost looks like you might have a V, but bring your yarn to the back and just look real quick, and you'll also notice that there's a purl bump next to it, so you know you've got 2 purls in a row. So that will tell you that's what we got to do. So this is it. That's all you're doing, are these 2 rows over and over until you run out of yarn, or it's as long as you want. Adjust it however you like for the width, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about some blocking. So continue on, and I'll see you in a little bit. Okay, so you've finished your scarf, and it probably looks like this. It's all rolled up, even though you did a ribbing pattern, which keeps it from rolling this way, doesn't mean it stops it from rolling in on the ends, but it's easily fixed. We're gonna go block this, so just drop it in water. You don't even have to put anything in it. You can put like a soak wash or a Woolite if you want to, you know, if it got stinky or something from the time you bought it till now. Otherwise, stick it in with some cool room temperature water. Don't go hot, you don't want to felt it if you're using wool. Let it soak for 10-15 minutes, then don't wring it out, but squeeze it out. Get as much of the water as you can. Get a towel, wrap it up in the towel, and stand on it. That is the best way I have found to get the most water out. So I kind of, you know, I'll lay it out neat and fold it up enough to where I can stand on it easily and not like roll off of it. So stand on it for a few minutes, not even a few minutes, just a little while, and it'll help soak up all that water so that you can lay this out. I love lace blocking wires. I will link those in the description. If you're having trouble getting the edges straight, using those lace wires really helps. And so you don't want to like pull this out. It's got tons of stretch because it is a ribbing pattern. So just let it lay as it naturally does, and don't yank it out when you're pinning it, because you don't want it to kind of get stuck wide unless you like it like that. Just kind of let it lay, because once it gets wet, it's going to lay flat. It's going to kind of be like up here, how that's doing. So it'll naturally want to do that. So you'll just lay it out on an ironing board, on blocking mats. I got a link to those too because I love them. Whatever works best for you. You can get more length out of this, so if you made it or you're running out of yarn or you're using scrap yarn, you know, whatever's left over, and you don't quite have enough length, you'll probably get some more length after you block it as well. So let's go block it and then we'll come back and show you what it looks like and do some last thoughts. Okay, so we finished blocking. You can see my edges are nice and flat and straight now. It looks much better. It will, I gained some length on it. I love blocking natural fibers because it really changes the look, not totally the look, sometimes the look, but it changes the feel of it. It feels much softer as well. So it's a cool thing to do. I recommend blocking natural fiber projects whenever you make them. So that is it. That is the 2x1. Super simple. I would love to see your finished projects. Make sure you tag me on Instagram with your finished objects so I can see all of them on any kind of pattern, not just this one. Go check out my other patterns. I have tons of free pattern workshops in knit and crochet. If you want to see more, make sure you subscribe and like. I'm Deja with Knit and Crochet Ever After, and thank you for watching.